Welcome back to Unleashing the Brilliance, the podcast where we explore human nature and experience while learning to live our most authentic selves. I am your host, Amy Bascom. Let's dive in. Hey guys, welcome back to another episode. Happy Monday. I hope everyone has had a great few weeks. I wanted to say thank you for bearing with me these last couple of weeks. I kind of got in my head, which in the podcast world and really in life in general, we have this dip in life where, you have all the ambition, you're going, and then you just kind of hit a wall. You dip down for a bit. When that happens for me, it's typically because I am in my head. Something's happened, it put a seed of doubt in my head. I just kind of struggled with it. The first time, I had a crazy week. I was very anxious, struggled with coming up with what do I want to talk about, and I missed the deadline that I have for myself. I kind of beat myself up about it. I had a group meeting with some of my pod members. We talked, and they're just kind of like, sometimes life happens, sometimes you just need to take a break to reset. It's okay. Then the next week, life happened again, and I realized I'm getting into a pattern, and I don't like that pattern. This last weekend, I had a lovely conversation with my friend Sari. We got talking about what that struggle was and how that impacted this podcast, what that meant. I would love to share some of the conversations that Sari and I had. We talked a lot about what happened. To give a brief overview is I had a psychological evaluation to determine if I was ADHD. But there was 4 different diagnoses that I was being tested for. And when I got the results back, I didn't quite know how to handle it. I felt very unseen, unheard. And I started thinking back to the evaluation itself, the psychologist that I saw, and comparing my interactions with her to what had happened pretty much my entire life. I noticed that she was cutting me off a lot, not allowing me to finish my thoughts. And it just really made me feel like my words weren't important. My voice wasn't important. And that triggered me and put me back into a state of being unable to feel confident, the ability to see what the pattern was and how to pivot and shift gears so that way I wasn't falling into old behaviors. Without further ado, I would like to introduce you to my lovely, lovely friend. Her name is Sari Stone. She is the podcast host of Just Count Me In, and it is such an honor to have her help me through this moment, and I think she's absolutely stunning, beautiful person. Her mind is amazing. I think a lot of people who listen, do yoga, who are very spiritual, in the educated world, anything like that, I think she would be somebody who you should definitely take a look at because I enjoy her. She has wisdom beyond belief, so much experience that I just think it's beautiful. So without further ado, here is my conversation with Sari.
So how was your week?
My week was very difficult. I haven't put out an episode in a couple weeks, and it was really me getting into my head. I had gotten some test results back from a psychologist. I decided to get evaluated for ADHD. In my healing journey, I did some EMDR, which helped remove the masking that I was doing my entire life from coping mechanisms. And the results kind of pissed me off because she had me do 4 or 5 different tests. My responses came back as, hey, this individual's profile is showing that they are ADHD. It's in line with the DSM-5. And she had me do an observation one and have my dad fill it out, which really regretting that one because my dad is not the most observant person in the world. And he has a hard time picking up on my social cues. He doesn't seem to realize when I turn the radio up or I say, I'm going to finish this episode of a podcast or this chapter of a book, he talks over me. So
He doesn't get you.
He doesn't
right?
get.
And I didn't mean to interrupt you.
Oh no,
Yeah,
you're fine. No,
just thinking
like
in my head, he really doesn't get her.
he
So
doesn't. He doesn't get it. And so when he filled out the observation portion of it, I debated about looking at his answers, and I just kind of thought to myself, you know what? No, my dad and I already have like a tumultuous relationship. It's, I mean, he's been a really good help since I had my daughter, but growing up, he and I did not get along at all. He was
right.
very emotionally abusive, very not a good parent, emotionally immature, just
So
not.
that's one whole thing also,
Yeah,
right?
so that's like one
It's-
whole thing.
Right, that's one whole thing also. So my question is, do you have someone else that you would trust knows you at a better level to fill it out? Or my bigger question, Amy, is like, what are you looking for from this diagnosis? Are you looking for just validation, like, oh yeah, like I read a book called Driven to Distraction, and I was like, oh my gosh, that's why, and it was good. And if I felt like I wanted Ritalin or something, then I would have gone to a doctor. If I wanted medication to control it, okay.
Yeah.
But other than that, I don't feel like I need validation from outside. And that's where I would sense like my heart is just, I'm feeling that you are not accepting your own validation as being your opinion of yourself is more important than what this doctor thinks. And you know this stuff, you're a coach.
Yeah.
It's hard to coach yourself because you're not up in the balcony, you're in it, so I can always coach someone else better than myself. So just think about like what, so I'm asking you honestly, like what does it matter whether you get this diagnosis or not?
I think for my generation and for me, it's the validation because as a millennial, everything was shoved to the side. I mean, in the 90s, unless you were an overactive little boy who was disrupting school, you weren't going to get any sort of diagnosis, which meant you weren't going to get any sort of help. So,
Talking to a teacher here. I advocate for
yeah,
so many kids. Yep. Still, it is not much better.
no, no, it's really not.
So,
Going
yeah.
through the school system right now with my daughter, I see her having the same
Mhm.
similarities as me as a child, and I'm fighting like hell
Good.
for that get them to be like, okay, can you at least help her with this?
Yeah.
I mean,
Yeah.
she unfortunately has some trauma in her life, and I had to like fight tooth and nail for them to even consider her to do any sort of therapy.
Mhm. So for you, because I'm
So
going to
for
keep on you.
yeah, so for me, it was I want that validation. I want that label only so that way I can do some more research and I can understand a little bit better and see myself in it because otherwise, like I know a lot of people do the self-diagnosis, which is great. But I also know if I might be somebody who might need medication.
That's different. Okay. Then you need to try to either go another venue, go with someone else, or you can go to a family physician with symptoms and get all kind of what they offered me. And I can't take any of that stuff. But what they offered me, like when I was moving and having a lot of anxiety about moving, here's Xanax. It's like I, had a heart attack a few years ago. I don't think that's a good idea. Or, I'm not able to focus. They're like, whoa, we think you have a little bit of adult ADHD. I was like, I know I have that. They're like, let me give you this. They're more than happy. A lot of doctors are more than happy to give those things. So, I mean, if you're looking for it and there's nothing wrong with needing medicine to help get you through something, and then you train your brain to do it without the medicine. Okay. I'm not saying there's anything wrong with that, but I'm saying if that's what it is, be clear with yourself. And if you want to research more of it because you want to. And if
Mm-hmm.
you want the outcome of possibly needing medication, just to try that avenue to see, oh my gosh, that is what the anxiety and depression, it's all linked. They're all related. They're all like cousins that hang out with each other too much.
Exactly.
And
Exactly.
so you know that. So, I mean, I think what I'm looking for is for you to figure out your clarity as to why you want this, instead of making this into, I'm trying to get the right words, into another situation where I'm not getting my needs met and they're not getting me. And I don't curse. I work with kids. I can't curse on this. So you know what I mean? So
Yeah.
are you going there? Or are you honestly wanting to do something to get better with yourself?
It first came up when I was in therapy. And my therapist was like, we don't handle evaluations. You'll have to go to your PCP.
Right.
So my PCP, I explained to her some of the symptoms and stuff that I've been noticing a lot more and things that happened in my childhood. And she's like, I think you definitely should be evaluated.
Mm-hmm.
And I found a local, like an hour away local psychologist who did it. And my results came back as I was when they factored in my dad's responses.
Oh, shoot,
he
that's story.
he
Okay.
came back as everything was not elevated, because I'm sure in his mind he's probably thinking, well, this is all just who she is. It's not too extreme.
She's always been this way.
She's always been
So
this way.
that's important for me to have the background. So you did all that already.
Yeah, I did
And
all
what
that.
you need to do is have somebody else evaluate you.
Mhm.
That's
Yeah,
all.
it came back
You
as
need that. You are going to need that. And if you want to be free to make the choice of whether to get medicine or not, then yeah, I mean, because that's different. That's different. And then they're really going on a lot, because you could, number one, get somebody to fill it out and be dishonest, or you could be a person that hides it and is very high functioning, and other people don't know that you're like going through hell inside,
exactly. And I'm very high.
With that second opinion, I honestly think that maybe you need to, well, I don't know, because it's an hour from you already. Find someone who will value your opinion and the fact that you're being honest and you're an ethical person.
Mm-hmm. I found a company that's about 3.5 hours away that I'm willing to go downstate and do.
Can they do this? Can they do virtual?
I'm not sure. They might be able to.
I mean, that might be something. I see people virtually.
Yeah.
And we do a lot of work, and I definitely would be able to feel them. I feel you. I've never met you like in person.
Yeah.
I still feel you. So I think that most places, I mean, I see my cardiologist, he's in Colorado, I'm in South Carolina. Like, he's comfortable with that, except for the tests. I have to go somewhere else for the tests.
Yeah, actually have the results. Yes.
So maybe try that. So is that like tainted the whole week, or do you feel like with the podcast, I noticed that there weren't episodes, but I figured you're taking it further. And I know a lot of people were around that 7-week mark. I wasn't, because I didn't start till January 29th, but I hit a dip anyway. 2 weeks ago when I had talked to you guys and I told you about it. So do you feel like you're just hitting a dip, or do you feel like maybe this is what you're waiting for and possibly this is the episode?
It could be a combination of both, to be honest. It really could, because I did get in my head with that, because I got the results back.
Danger zone up there. It's like,
when I got the results back, she's like, it's just depression and anxiety. It's not ADHD. I'm like, I know my body
right
when I'm depressed, and I'm not depressed, because when I'm depressed, I can't think of a future. I don't see any sort of happiness. All of these stuff. It's like, yes, I have the tiredness. Yes, I have the, lack of motivation here and there, but I don't feel like it's because of depression. I feel it's more because there's just so much going on that it's the paralysis. I can't decide what to do, so I'm just not going to do anything.
You're spinning and overwhelmed. So the question is, I got the question, fine, thank you. Sometimes it takes me a while to find the right words. How does the diagnosis change your life? That's the question.
I talked with my sister about this, because she feels that she's the same way as me. And my sister and I never really got along in childhood. We only really have started building a friendship and a relationship in the last 1.5 years, 2 years. And her fear is that it's just a phase, that she's going to fall into the I'm just a phase thing, because example is she has issues with gluten. She's not celiac yet, like they haven't classified her as that, but she has issues with her GI system. She has issues with gluten, like it's horrendous. And when she was in Chile studying abroad, like it flared up. She had a whole bunch of issues, And no doctor wanted to give her a diagnosis because they're like, well, this is just the latest trend. You don't have this. This isn't real. It's all in your head. This is just something that everyone's being diagnosed with it, so you want the diagnosis. And she's like, no, I'm actually legit having these issues.
So can I say something?
Yeah.
So again, who gives a flying pig what the doctor says if you know that it makes you sick to eat wheat or eat gluten, or you tracked it and you know, like, I'll get anxiety or my joints will hurt after. I don't have celiac. I don't need a doctor to test me for this. I'm again, she's looking for a diagnosis. How would the diagnosis change? She would change her diet. Can she change her diet anyway? Yes. Does she need an outside diagnosis? Because there's not medicine for it. No. So
Yeah.
with this, with the ADD or ADHD, then if the diagnosis is because you want medicine, then that would be how it would change your life. You could try medicine. Do you see what I'm saying?
Mm-hmm.
It's kind of like you're both doing the same thing from what I see. And we all do it to a tendency.
Yeah.
We all do it. We were supposed to focus on what do we do when we have doubts this past week. And I didn't put, no one else put it in the chat either. So that was okay. But I feel like we talked about it last week when we ended. And because I didn't want to put it in the chat, because I realized that the first thing I do when I have a doubt is I'll ask my husband, or I'll ask somebody I trust, or I'll put it in something and
Yeah.
ask you guys. And that is not the cool answer. The cool answer is to try the 5 whys, which is what I would coach people to do, or to
Yeah.
go inside and align with myself. And yes, I do those things, but the very first thing I do is like, I go to someone else. So I understand outsourcing your power that way, but with big things with my life, waiting for validation from a doctor, it's dangerous. I mean, if my mom waited for validation from a doctor and she's dead. Okay. And that hit me at a very young age and I never forgot it. And I'm not saying that it wasn't the doctor's fault. She just couldn't find the right doctor to find what was wrong. They actually went in to give her a, take out her ovaries, thinking that there was cysts on there, and she had colon cancer that was so advanced that had already
Oh my
spread.
goodness.
It wasn't even her friggin' ovaries. So that happening when I was 19 really taught me the beauty and the wisdom in that was, if your body is telling you something, you don't wait for a diagnosis, you act as if,
Okay.
see whether things get better.
Mm-hmm.
And, you know, she waited a year and a half.
And then that cancer
Too
just
late.
progressed.
Too late. So that said, I'm very sensitive when people outsource their powers to doctors, or probably should be with anybody, but if it's somebody that you love and trust and they'll help get you centered in yourself, which is what I'm trying to help you do right now, is to center to you, not anything else. Just who are you and why do you need it? Like how is your life going to look different with this diagnosis? And can you just act as if you have the diagnosis and get on with your life? Or do you need medicine to help you act as if, to help you go on with your life, which there's no shame in? So which is it for you?
So I have a friend who gave me, probably shouldn't be admitting this, but I'm going to anyways. She gave me a pill of Adderall.
Right.
And it took a little bit to kick in, but the day that she gave it to me, my house was just like super overwhelming. I couldn't focus. I had no idea where to start. I was like over at her house bawling my eyes out, going like, I just can't focus. I don't know where to start. Oh my God. And so she's like, try this. If it helps you, then more than likely you are ADHD. Because I have a niece and nephew who both got put on Adderall, and it helped my nephew immensely. He was like chaotic ADHD kid, mellowed him right out. And it had the exact opposite effect on my niece.
Right. When it doesn't work, it doesn't work. I work with a lot of kids that get put on and come off of that. And also a few people in their 20s who developed addictions to that. So it's definitely makes you feel better. If you don't need it, it can just have a different effect, or it can be recreational because it gives you that serotonin. Right? So also if you're very low in serotonin, but I know the feeling of taking something that works when you have ADHD from my own experience. And it's like flicking on a light switch. It's like, this is how people normally think. Oh my gosh. Like,
Yeah, I mean, once it
I
actually
can drive my car with the windshield wipers on and it's raining and there's music and somebody's talking to me and I'm not having anxiety. Wow. Like, what's in this pill and how can I get my brain to do this? And I
right.
figured out how to get my brain. There are ways to figure out to get your brain how to do it. Since you're coming out of a very traumatic situation recently, and you feel like the medicine will help you, it can help you realize it's possible for you, and then you won't always need it.
Yeah.
So it's kind of like when somebody's really depressed. There was someone I know that had really bad postpartum depression. She didn't even tell anybody at the time. So at the
I
time,
had one. I had a really bad.
you're another one. And so with the first baby, she didn't tell anyone. And so she didn't have anything. And then they asked thank goodness, when she got pregnant with the second child, they said, were you, did you have depression? She was like, oh my gosh, I think that is what I had. And they put her on an antidepressant
Yeah.
after she gave birth. And it was like a night and day experience for her. She weaned herself off. They were also rigid about her staying on it for a year. So that's the other thing. She stayed in touch with herself. She started having some weird heart things. She started having some nightmares. She started having just like jagged experiences with coming in and out of feeling weird. And so she said, can I go off? And the doctor's like, oh, no, you need to stay on for a full year. And, the baby is only 9 months old now. Well, she weaned herself off, and it was rough weaning off, but she just did it herself. And I have myself weaned myself off of, with my doctor knowing I was doing it, but my heart medicines I weaned off of. So it's also, so it's a balance. If you need help from a doctor, find a doctor that will help you. If you have a belief that doctors are not going to be able to help you, or that you don't bring the right people into your life that really get you, then that's what's going to keep happening.
And like during this evaluation, it really irked me because she kept cutting me off. And I felt like, okay, you're not listening to what I'm trying to convey. You're cutting me off. You're asking me 7 questions at once. I can't focus on what questions to answer because you just threw like a million at me. And I really wasn't thrilled with the evaluation.
I don't mean to cut you off. I was just thinking it doesn't, and I'm sorry. Did you want to go ahead and finish? I apologize.
I was just saying that I didn't feel like she was listening, and I was already hesitant to be like, okay, am I actually going to get this diagnosis, because you keep cutting me off? So how can you know, based on like just talking to me, if I am ADHD, if you're not listening, if you're not actively listening?
Did you tell her that you don't feel like she's listening to you?
I did not. I didn't have that courage.
Okay. So you shut down because I don't blame you. I'm just asking, because that is something you can do, is say, I don't feel like this is going anywhere because but stick up for yourself. I don't feel like you're hearing me. I don't feel like you're really listening to me, and this really triggers me. And then you've opened the door, and she could be like, I'm sorry, maybe I was just trying to fix. I'm sorry, maybe I was just trying to help you. I'm sorry, maybe I really am not the person, because maybe I'm not able to listen to you. Or I'm sorry, maybe, but the chance for her to be someone that's in your life for a reason, not to reinforce anything negative, but for you. And it could be for you to advocate for yourself. It could have been maybe. Or it could be for you to say, hey, you're the wrong person. You don't get to do that in your family, but you do get to do that with doctors, and with friends. I mean, you can do it with your family, but it's a long thing. But in this case, so I'm saying, I always try to look at things, and me enough by now. How's it happening for me? What's the opportunity for me? I don't care about them. I don't. It's not like I don't care about them as a human. I would help them if they needed help and they were lying on the street or something. But right now I'm talking to you, so I really don't, your sister, this doctor, this other person, your father, I care about you.
Okay.
So how is this happening for you, not to you?
This is true. It's a hard question. Like, I don't know.
We're still friends after this conversation.
Oh, Sari, we'll be friends. Don't worry. Like, I love that I have friends that ask the hard questions, because growing up, yeah, I've had friends who they tell you what you want to hear, and I don't like that. It's like, tell me what I need to hear and what I don't need to hear. Like, tell me the fucking truth. Be brutally honest with me. I respect that a lot more than somebody just saying something to appease me, so I won't get mad.
It's hard to watch somebody suffer, and it's, if you feel like you can say something to help them to feel better, it makes you feel better. But when somebody's honestly asking for advice, and they're honestly asking, like, what do you think about this? Then you're not doing them a favor by just trying to make them feel better. You want to, like, be not a flashlight, be more like a fire, or be more like a lantern, so that you show them what you're honestly getting about the situation, and then maybe they can see something in themselves. And my question is always going to be, how's it happening? Even when I'm in the middle of it, how's this happening for me? Because I know that things happen for me, and it feels like it's a to me, but it's a for me. So again, how could this be happening for you with the doctor? What are you going to get out of it if you go see another doctor? What'd you
I
learn?
think more understanding.
You'll learn, but what are you going to learn about you?
I don't know. You asked nice questions.
I have a lot of help. I can't take credit for all, I have a lot of help.
I'm not sure how to answer that, because I guess I kind of look at it as, when something happens for me, it's pivoting my life in a direction away from where I was going.
It is.
So if I'm heading down a path that I know I probably shouldn't be going down, and something happens, quote unquote, to me, then that's the victim mindset.
So what if you're heading down a path now of wholeness and health and claiming what's yours, and something happened that wasn't in your plans, but it's happening for you to see another way that is still pointing you towards wholeness, health, and claiming what's yours, which also includes self-advocating and walking away from situations when they're wrong for you instead of sitting in them? What if?
That's very true. What if?
What if?
I think we have to be open-minded in that aspect. We need to accept that paths change, and it's okay.
It's still the same path of the big picture, wholeness, right? Being yourself, living wholeheartedly, expressing what you're here to express, and healing yourself. That person isn't necessary for your journey, but this experience is, because it's what you do with it that's gonna tell you how it's happening for you. Like, wow, if this hadn't happened, I wouldn't have realized that I can pivot and go towards a person that's going to help me. I'm going to keep reaching, and I'm going to go towards a person that's going to help me. The journey's the same. You're not going down the wrong road. It's happening when you're going down the right road too, is what I want to say. It happens when you're going down the right road, but looking at the wrong streets. Like, that's not the way to get here. And it'll be like, I can't get through on this street. Well, I thought I could get through, and I know it's all headed the same way. And maybe it's headed that way for another person with this counselor, this psychologist, psychiatrist. But for you, it's about your lesson. And this is your wholeness. And this is something that you're claiming for yourself. Right?
Yeah.
Yeah. And this is towards health. So let go of that. Be done with that. Don't put your energy towards that anymore. Focus on if I was reading this and I'm a character in a book, or I'm a person on the screen, what would you want that actor to do?
Pivot.
Go towards someone who's gonna work, right? Like, you can't keep looking, it's like that old thing about you dropped your keys in the, but it's dark there, so you're looking where it's light. So where it was light was this doctor, so you're looking for your keys there, right? It's not where you dropped your keys, you know? You need to go back to where you dropped your keys, and that original spot is, I need somebody to help me diagnose this for whatever reason. I don't have to justify it to anybody, I feel like I need this right now. And is this person it? No. All this
No.
other stuff, good, done.
Yeah. The psychologist definitely was not it.
No,
And
but
that
you've
was
got
fun.
somebody who could be it. And
Yeah.
so what are you learning is what I'm saying. Like, what is your process? What are you learning about you? Your resilience, your strength, your ability to bounce back, your ability to pull in and look at yourself. What are you learning about you?
I've known my whole life that I am very resilient because of the shit that I've been through and the fact that I'm still here.
So it's not that.
What
would it
I'm
be?
very stubborn. I know that.
So that's something you already know. It's not that. This is something that you haven't done, maybe that you regret not doing with other people. It can be a form of a lot of things. It can be whatever it is that's a change in you and a growth in you and a new beginning in you is why it's happening for you. It's not to reinforce who you were, because who you were is what you're trying to expand right now.
I'd have to say a lot of self-acceptance, because
Okay.
when I was doing EMDR, that was actually one of the goals that we pinpointed was I have a lot of trouble accepting who I am as an individual. I know, like, if I were to look at myself as a third person, like say I'm sitting in your shoes looking at me, I would look at my past and everything and be like, wow, this person, she's been through hell and back. She's overcome so many things. She's doing things that a lot of people wouldn't be able to do.
Yes.
But for some dumb reason, like me sitting in my own body, it's like I see that, but it's like my brain doesn't want to accept it. It's like, yeah, well, that's expected of me. I'm supposed to do that.
Your brain is keeping you in the familiar and in those old tapes, and you have a belief that you're playing there. So just know what it is. Just know what it is. And maybe you don't shift. I'm going to be doing an episode this week on, because I'm doing gradients with my kids and one of my adult clients. And because you're like trying to change, but if you're at a point, so let's say this, I'll just give you an example. So this person, and it's okay for me that I share, I'm just not going to share her name, was really angry that something happened, that something got changed. Okay. And she was surprised, and she really doesn't like surprises like this, and did not want, she likes there's security in knowing what's coming next, and she puts a lot of that there. And so I totally had compassion for that, but I'm also not going to feed that and have her sit there and just be angry, because she was sitting in it. She was sitting in a dirty diaper, right? So it's kind of, and we all know that feeling. It's like that. So from a child, hopefully not from us. So then I was like, okay. So she was like, so choose happy. And I was like, I really don't think we're gonna flip a switch. You can try it, and if you can flip a switch and choose happy and put happy on and get a happy feeling into your system and start aligning with that, let's go in and you can try that. I was going to suggest that you move it up to really frustrated. Take a little move to frustrated, right? And then take a little move from there. I forget what it was. I wrote them all down because I snapshotted for her mom. She moved from frustrated to annoyed. And then from annoyed to thinking you're rude. And then thinking the person was rude. And then from there to, I don't like this. And then from there to, I don't like this. Let me figure out how I can deal with it. And then I can accept this, and then what can I do with it? And then can I play with this and find some fun in it? And she shifted. It took her about 12 minutes,
Oh, wow.
And she shifted. And she didn't shift to ecstatically happy about it. She shifted her frequency and then started seeing things. So maybe you can look at it on a gradient yourself. I don't know. I don't know. I'm trying it myself with a couple of things. As I said, I'm better at coaching people because I'm in the balcony. It's so much easier. I'm not like sitting in it, you know?
Yeah, it's so much easier to see from a bird's eye view than down on the
Yeah,
ground.
but you can do it. And then I always feel like, shoot, if that came through me for one of my people, I should be experimenting with it myself when I'm feeling pretty bad or pretty unhappy about a situation. And so hence I'm gonna make an episode with that, with my change series. But I'm just saying, maybe you can look at it like a gradient. It's pulling you out of the old pattern of staying. I'm trying to see. I see people, because I see, so that's kind of a weird way to, it's like a knowing, but I see people and then they're pulling you, you're pulling them, they're pulling you, you're pulling them. You want to go here. You want to go to somebody that where you feel it's pulling you.
Yeah.
Find where it's pulling you and stop the old pattern of, I would cut the ties, whatever it is you do to stop a pattern, because those patterns are poison. Those old patterns are poison. And we need to just treat them like, oof, you're attached, like flick it off, like you're camping and you get that hot ash or something, or it's a mosquito and it's like, flick it off. No, sorry if you're a mosquito fan, but
Oh, no, mosquitoes love me. I hate.
okay, thank you. Oh, that's right. We had this intake discussion. That's right. Well, I mean, I have respect for people. I don't like to harm living things, but I'm just saying when somebody's sucking the life out of me, you know, and I go towards where I feel pulled. I go towards where I can get some kind of happy, some kind of like, at least if I'm not happy, I'm feeling strong, or I'm feeling like, yeah, or I'm feeling like I can do something about it. And I kind of climb up a rope. If I was strong enough, it's a goal. I don't think I can hold my weight on a rope, but in my mind, I'm climbing up a rope and pulling up and out of the muck a little bit at a time. And like my whole body was in it, so now it's just my legs in it. And then we got to where this girl, like just her toe was in it. She just took her foot and flicked her foot. It was so funny. And she was like, all right. And I said, now rinse yourself with light, rinse yourself off with light, and let's see where you're going. Let's see where you're going. And what was this whole thing really about?
See, I think I needed that conversation.
Yeah, so maybe think about that. I think has huge, huge possibilities for you. And I think you have the opportunity to, with your background and with how strong you are and with how much you've been through, you have the background to take that strength and put it towards you. Towards you, not towards your survival, towards your thriving. I think thrival should be a word. It's not, you know what I mean? Thrive, like,
yes, because for so long, like I have been in survival mode, probably for at least a decade or so.
So there it is. So there you have it. So there's like, I'm at the bottom of a well, things are happening, I can't help. You could make a whole string about that.
I think one of the things that was happening the last couple of weeks is I was focusing so much on like the current events and trying to pull some of my therapy techniques and stuff and applying it there that I feel like I kind of lost focus because like why in our call for class yesterday, with Kathy, we went back to, why are we here? What was our purpose? And why I started a podcast was because I knew that with the journey that I have just been on in the last, maybe not even just the last couple of years, but like the last decade or two or three. I mean, I'm 35. So, my whole life, like somebody's going to relate to this in some way.
Oh my gosh. So just anybody who listens to it will either have the insight to directly relate to it, or if they're not ready to face that part of themselves, they'll know somebody who they can help with this.
Exactly.
Or the bigger picture. I'm going big picture here.
Okay, go big picture. Let's hear.
Okay, so big picture. And because of that, See, I enjoy that my brain is like that. It is very hard that it's like that, but I enjoy that I see connections all over the place. I see big picture for you. So what started out as asking for a diagnosis is actually leading you towards confirmation and self-actualization and affirmation yourself about what I need, and that if I feel like I need a medication, the right person is going to show up in my life, and I'm going to stay open until I find them.
Mhm.
And I'm going to stay myself. And I'm not going to, and I'm just going to say this word, and I hope you feel how much I feel for you, but it's sabotage to ask somebody that you know doesn't know you.
Yeah, I really regret saying yes that there is somebody who could fill it out, because in the last couple years I have been isolated.
So you can't ask your little girl. I thought about that because you go
Yeah,
a lot and you are, I'm like, I don't know who could fill it out.
there's
Not
nobody
everybody
nobody in
knows,
my
we're
daily
gonna go
life
to the
that
food
would be
store,
able.
and be like, hey, but so you can tell them that. Like, I wouldn't have asked you to, you're coming out of a marriage situation, you're living with your little girl. You don't have, like, your family is probably not usually gonna be the people that could, maybe they could, maybe someone else's family, mine wouldn't. They'd be like, that's just Sari, that's just the way she thinks, you know?
Yeah.
So they don't see you, because they're like desensitized to how you are. They don't see it as anything wrong. That's naturally who you are. And
Mm-hmm.
so I would just be honest with the person and say, you know what, I'm pretty isolated. I'm not gonna have my little girl do this. She's 10.
Yeah,
Since she's 10.
she's 6.
Oh, I'm
She's
sorry, 6. I apologize. She's 6. So she's 6, that's even less. So yeah, I don't think she's equipped. And
no.
they gotta go on your word. You're not, oh, I mean, a child, like, I fill it out for children. The teacher fills it out, the parent fills it out, and in joint custody, both parents. And then we put heads together. If somebody's out of sync with that and the kid is showing all those things, the psychiatrist overrides everybody. They're like, okay, so I know that this parent is totally anti-med, no matter what. So I know they're not gonna have those answers. Okay, I know that this parent is high all the time. They're not really getting what this kid does. Not usually the case, but it has happened. It has
Yeah.
happened. And they override. And so if it's somebody that really sees you, which is who you're bringing into your life right now, because you really don't want to put the time and energy into this other stuff, it's your journey from that. You're
Exactly.
validating yourself and your own needs, and there's nothing wrong with needing somebody else to help you, but not to validate you. There's a difference there.
Yeah,
This is
that's
what I
something that
need.
I've struggled with, is
Right,
accepting who I am
right,
as a person inside my own body.
right.
Now, if I were to take myself and put it as a third person and look at everything from the outside, from a different perspective, then I see how awesome I can be. I see how caring I am. I see how loving I am. I see how my daughter picks up on these things. I see all these things just like everybody else sees.
Yes.
But it's hard for me to like accept that. And I'm trying to figure out why. Why is it so hard for me to accept it? What happened to like have that pause of I can't do it? Like, what is the barrier that's breaking? What wall do I gotta break down?
But it does seem like there's a belief, so there's a belief, and then there's some other old stuff that you would need to go in and kind of clear out, and then some new things to program in, and then it's gonna be, your mind will fight you because it wants to keep you safe, but you can do it. You're very strong-willed, and it's definitely something you can do. Right now, when I'm stuck, I say, what would I do if I had my act together? And I do it. And I don't feel like it's my natural instinct all the time.
Yeah.
But I'm like, if I had my act together, or I used to kid around with my husband, what would a responsible adult do right now? Like, dang it, because I don't feel like doing that. But if I was a responsible adult, what would I always kid, it's my Halloween costume every year. I'm dressing as a responsible functioning adult. So
Exactly.
So So what would a responsible functioning adult with their act together do right now? And do it, just do it. And the why will come, and maybe when you get your mind calmed down a little bit more, maybe the why will be a little bit more apparent and you won't just be spinning. In the meantime, I want to ask you before we get off the call, have you tried ashwagandha or maca or matcha?
So my friend actually has some ashwagandha pills that she gave me a good starter bunch, and I've been taking ashwagandha for about a week or two.
Okay.
Like,
I love ashwagandha.
yeah.
And L-theanine works really well for anxiety. And I know there's types of mushrooms. I see a acupuncturist, a Chinese medicine. He's in Colorado, but I talk to him now, I miss him. But he makes formulas for me that help. He's like magic formulas, Chinese medicine formulas. And they use a lot of, it's all plant. So, and those things can really make a difference. Like there's some stuff that makes so much of a difference that I can't even take it right now because of my heart. But
Yeah.
it was like, woo, here it is, but a little too much for me. And I don't need it anymore because I've trained myself, but I take supplements that really help with the focus, and I exercise. I exercised before I saw you for a solid 30 minutes, or I would not have wanted to. I don't do this unless I've got my brain right from exercise. And whether you've got ADHD or not, you've got a body and you want to turn those brain chemicals on before you start even thinking too much. Like I'll meditate in the morning, but I don't do any thinking until I medicate with the exercise. So it is self-medication, but it is harmless, it's actually good for me. So I mean, I would try those things while you're waiting to meet this other person, and maybe look it up and research it a little bit, because they're natural, but they're pretty powerful too. So watch it, and watch.
Alrighty.
All right.
Thank you so much.
Oh, you're welcome. All right, take care. Thank you.
We'll see you later.
Sari really had me start thinking about why I wanted to pursue this ADHD diagnosis. And at first, when I first started realizing that some of the symptoms that I had, such as the inability to focus, racing minds, incomplete tasks, constantly feeling overwhelmed, unable to follow through on things, brain slow to process information, like constantly having to ask people to repeat or clarifying questions, easily distracted, losing things, forgetting where things are at, forgetting tasks, especially forgetting my point when I'm speaking, which I'm sure you guys have noticed here on the podcast that I tend to veer off into tangents and then try to remember where was I at to wrap it back around. Decision paralysis. A lot of these symptoms are things that are current and are affecting my life, but they're also things that I had my whole life. Things from childhood. When I was a little kid, I was a kid that could not shut up. And I will have teachers vouch for this. I literally had teachers had to separate me and my friends because all we would do is sit and talk. They used to call me Chatty Cathy. I would be the kid that is constantly raising her hand, wanting to answer everything, having to speak. I couldn't think straight. My brain was constantly racing. It was like a competition between me and the timer as to who could get this done. And doing presentations at school, I was constantly being told, Amy, you need to slow down. We can't understand you. You are speaking too fast. This is a 10-minute presentation. If you slow it down a little bit, you'll reach that 10 minutes instead of finishing in 6. And it was all these little things that I didn't realize could be inattentive ADHD, but they were all things in my life. And as I was telling Sari that I don't think my dad was the best person to fill out this observer portion of this test that my psychologist gave me, is because to him, those are just me. Those are just factors of who I am. They're not anything that's out of norm for me growing up. And he has nothing to compare it to. Not really. And another thing is, I really don't tell my parents a lot of the struggles that I have because I do feel like as an adult, it's my job to figure it out. And in my healing journey, I've kind of learned that my parents are emotionally immature. My mom got married young. She never really had a typical 20s. She got married at 19. And so now that she's divorced, now that her kids are all grown up, she's acting like a teenager again. And my dad just is kind of like Ron Weasley, has the emotional range of a teaspoon. He likes to cut me off. He doesn't like confrontation. He doesn't like to talk about feelings. When I do try and talk about things that are hurting or that are frustrating, I get the yep. I know, we're good. Okay, yep. And then he will immediately walk away, hang up the phone. And that kind of has taught me that I can't go to my parents. They aren't safe people to have these discussions with, to open up. And as a mom, I don't want that kind of relationship for me and my daughter. I want her to be come to me for anything, any emotions, any problems that she has. I don't ever want her to have to hide and feel like she can't come to me. And so I think that's kind of why my dad was not the best person to fill this out. And as I said in my conversation with Sari, I am pretty isolated. The last 2 years, I haven't been working. I've been trying to build my own business and do things online so I could stay home and really focus on healing and getting my mental health in a better place, so I could function and could not be in this deep level of depression. So when the psychologist asked me if there was anybody who could attest to my symptoms, I told her, I live by myself with my 6-year-old daughter. She does not know me in that manner. She is not equipped to take a test like this or fill it out on anyone's behalf. Kids don't typically fill out their own evaluations. Even when I was doing my evaluation, there was another kid that he was probably about 10, 12, and he was having his mom sit there and she was reading the questions, and she even said to him, wow, I feel like I don't know you because some of these responses that you're giving are not the responses that I would have given. And that really opened my eyes that kids these days, they've got to be able to trust their parents. And as parents, we need to shift gears and not be like our own parents, not continue that generational cycle of emotions bad, suck it up and deal with it. And so in thinking about why I want to pursue this, it might be that I do need medication. I have taken enough psychology courses to know that when your brain has a chemical imbalance, of course, there are natural ways to increase the hormones that are off. But sometimes you also need store-bought, and that is okay. I have store-bought serotonin. I have store-bought norepinephrine. I have store-bought dopamine. Those are 2 of the medications that I'm on to keep my depression at baseline and keep my brain where it needs to be, where I can function and I can handle life. 2 years ago, I couldn't handle life. I couldn't handle anything that was going on. And that's a whole another episode. So why I'm pursuing this diagnosis might be because I need medication. It might be that I want to get in touch with resources. It might be that I need like an ADHD coach. I know there's tons of coaches out there on the internet. It could be I need a therapist who specializes in ADHD. I don't know. But I do know that according to my own doctor, she can't give me any Adderall, any medication until I have that actual diagnosis. She's a PA, and she can't give that diagnosis. She can't prescribe it. Kind of frustrating, but I get it. Yeah, it's a lot to think about, a lot to figure out where I want to go, what I want to do. And I'm kind of starting to realize that it is okay to be self-diagnosed. It's okay to say, I have all these symptoms, and I know that it's affecting my life because I'm paying attention to it and I'm recognizing it. Sometimes in life, you don't pay attention. you don't realize until somebody points it out. And then you stop and think, oh, my college roommate, when she was going through her diagnosis, she told me that she spent a couple weeks beforehand really observing her behavior, really paying attention to which symptoms were bothering her the most. And this is how much like ADHD my brain was. We had this conversation in the summer. 6 months later, I'm getting my evaluation. And I literally freaking forgot to pay any attention to it. And I just kind of thought to myself, well, if that doesn't say something right there, I don't know what does, because I freaking forgot to pay attention to how these symptoms are affecting my life. It was not on my radar, even though I thought I'd put it on my radar. I just had to laugh at that. Sometimes you just need to have a friend who loves you and cares about you and wants what's best for you to sit down and have an open conversation, talk things through. This conversation that I had with Sari ended up being the meeting that we have with our pod. She and I were the only ones to meet, and we got talking, and I was like, can I record this? Because this is like an episode. This is exactly what I want with guests in episodes, is just a conversation. I have so many amazing conversations with people, but most of them are so afraid to get their voices out. They're afraid to have people know what their opinions are and their thoughts and their feelings. And I guess I'm further along in my healing journey where I recognize that this is bigger than me. It has always been bigger than me. And if I can have one person hear an episode, relate to it, feel seen, feel heard, and that one person gets help, or that one person sparks a conversation, then I feel like I've done my job. I feel like I've helped somebody else not feel the way I felt with not being heard, not being seen, being dismissed. So going forward, I'm going to be back on our weekly sessions. Again, thank you so much for bearing with me these last couple weeks while I kind of wrapped my head around what this bizarre, yes, you're ADHD, but no, I'm not going to give you this diagnosis thing was all about. Maybe I'll talk more about that. But I definitely know I need to venture more into some of the struggles that I've gone through, how it kickstarted this healing journey, and how your past literally determines your future. And it has to do with cycles. If you have anybody, if you know of anybody that could use these episodes, please share it with them. Please let them know that they're not alone. I would love to welcome them into the podcast. And if you have a story that you want to share as well, or if you have a topic that you want to talk with me about, and if you're an expert, or even if you've just experienced it, reach out to me. I would love to have conversations and air them as episodes. So you guys have a wonderful, wonderful week, and we will catch you next week. Bye.